Let's talk about starting over, particularly starting over if you're of the lovely age of 35 or 40 plus like me. I've known plenty of women who've had to start from scratch. Not necessarily in a bad way. In fact, I'm thinking about my friend Cherish. She had a successful online business for many years and a really great podcast, and she taught other women how to turn their expertise into entrepreneurship. But recently, after a lot of deep thinking, she shifted her focus to have a chief of staff role and started working for another powerhouse woman and focusing on building her brand in a very, very different way. And then I have my friend Kat. Now, she's had a 25 plus year career with a prestigious institution, and she's held several leadership positions. If there was an award, Kat got it. She is that good. She's generally recognized as a top performer in her field. But now she's transitioning into being a digital nomad. And then there's me. I'll use myself as an example. I had a 15-year career in strategy at a major organization, and then I also had 10 years as a successful fitness professional. Now I moved across the country to try something completely new. Now you might be thinking like, what the hell do we have in common? And the thing is, it's simple. We evolved. I can't really speak for the other ladies, they're not here, so I'm going to talk about myself and my journey and how I started over. I started to feel the pull probably around the end of 2020. At that time, I'd made more money than I ever thought possible in my fitness coaching career. I'd been on TV, I was featured in Yahoo, MSN, Pop Sugar, MyFitnessPal, tons of other publications for my expertise. I even got free products, girl, child, because I loved it. And I had achieved that like influencer status. I had so many clients at one point that I had to hire 4 additional coaches to work with me. And not only was I paying myself well, but I paid my entire team really well. I felt good. I felt like I had achieved success at every level. And you'd think I'd be happy, right? But something didn't quite feel right. Maybe it was a pandemic. Maybe it was that I was really disappointed in the direction that the fitness industry was going in. But regardless of whether it was a pandemic or the industry, there was this restlessness and misalignment. I kept having the conversation with myself, if I had to do it all over again. And I had that conversation so many times that I'm like, well, why can't I just do it all over again? And that was just where I was in business. In my personal life, that was changing really fast too. My marriage was ending unexpectedly, so the life that I envisioned with my husband wasn't going to happen anymore. My daughter was heading off to college. I was going to be an empty nester, and I knew I didn't want to live in Michigan. And originally, my husband and I had plans to move out of state, but like I said, all of that was up in the air. So in life and in business, I was at a crossroads. There wasn't really an option where I could stay where I was. I just couldn't do it. So I changed. I evolved. And that was my brave choice. Now, if you've watched my other videos in the Brave series, you'll know that BRAVE is an acronym. It's a framework for change, and it stands for bold, rebellious, authentic, values-driven, and expansive. So when it was time to evolve, that's when the BRAVE principles showed up for me. I didn't have the fancy acronym back then, but I was bold. Instead of sticking to what was safe, I leaned into the bold choice. I moved to a place where there was no safety net. I didn't know anybody. And I decided to transition my business, which was also pretty rebellious because most people were like, what the hell are you doing? They told me I should have stuck with what I knew. I should stay in fitness. You're making money. Don't move so far away. This is just a phase. But I knew I had to be true to myself. I had to be authentic. And I knew that in order to move to the next chapter in my life, I had to do some uncomfortable things. I had to shake things up. And I knew I valued freedom and choice, and I felt like I needed to make some choices. I didn't want a safe and predictable life. There is nothing about this lady that says safe and predictable. I wanted my best life. So that meant I had to go beyond situations that were safe, known, or easy. So what happened? Well, 2.5 years later, I'm sitting in this chair, I'm still here, and I love my life in Vegas. But honestly, the first year was hard as hell. I had to heal from a marriage ending. I had to deal with my baby in college and missing her Financially, I went from like super highs and making the most money that I'd ever made in my life to having to take a 9 to 5 job while I was still figuring it all out. But I kept my brave mindset in front of me and continued to build my new life and business. So here I am, still standing and feeling pretty great about what I'm doing. But I don't want you to think that I am the exception. I'm the rule. And what I mean by that is not only are you allowed to change, you're supposed to change. You're supposed to change. This is a simple concept when you're younger. Like, no one expects you to continue to be the same person at 23 that you were at 13. So why is it when you're 40 or 50 or whatever age you are that people expect you to want the same things that you did when you were in your 20s? I mean, it just doesn't make any sense, right? The difference is that our culture tells us that once we reach adulthood, we're supposed to know exactly who we are and what we want to do and stay that way until we die. That makes no sense at all. So if you feel like your life doesn't fit anymore, that's normal. You may need to make some small changes, or maybe you need to make some big changes, but don't let anyone tell you that there's something wrong with wanting to evolve. It's okay if your life does not fit right now. Now, if you need some help figuring out what your brave choices are in the middle of your evolution, reach out to me. There's a link in the description for us to find a time to talk.